You know, we've all been there. You missed a deadline, maybe you're a day late on a bill, or you show up late for a meeting. It happens. But what if being just one day late could cost you millions? Today we're diving into a really fascinating legal case that all came down to a single day's delay. It's a story that forced the highest court in the land to ask a tough question. What's more important, the strict letter of the law or the spirit of justice itself?
So that's the big question, right? You miss a court deadline by just one single day. Is that it? Is your case just over? Or is there, a little bit of wiggle room when the stakes are this high? That's exactly what we're going to explore. All right, so how did this whole thing even get started? Well, it wasn't some huge, dramatic crime. It was actually something pretty common, a simple disagreement over fees.
So let's meet our players. In one corner, you've got the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, or SBMA for short. They're the government body in charge of the whole Subic Bay Freeport Zone. And in the other corner, we have Subic Bay Marine Exploratorium, SBMEI, a company that operates there. It's your classic government versus business face-off.
And what were they fighting about? This thing called the CUSA fee. Basically, the SBMA started charging this fee to all the businesses in the zone to help pay for services. Fixing roads, security, general upkeep. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But SBMA? Yeah, they weren't on board. So SBMAI took them to court arguing that this fee was illegal. And here's the kicker. The first court to hear the case, the regional trial court, actually sided with the business. They said the fee was invalid for SBMAI and told SBMA they couldn't collect it from them. This was a huge blow to the government authority.
Okay, so SBMA obviously wasn't going to take that lying down. They decided to appeal. But this is where a couple of small, everyday human errors set off a legal firestorm that would go all the way to the top.
So check this out. On September 2nd, the court hands the denial order to an SBMA lawyer who just happened to be in court that day, but she wasn't even the main lawyer on the case. So she takes it back to the office, and a new clerk gets the document and, oops, stamps it received on September 3rd. That one little stamp, one day off, is the whole problem, because the actual lawyer uses that incorrect date to calculate the 15-day deadline to appeal.
And the result of that tiny mix-up? They filed their appeal on September 18th, thinking they were right on time, but the clock had really started on September 2nd. They were one day late, just one single day.
So what happens now? You might be thinking, come on, it's just one day, what's the big deal? Well, in the legal world, deadlines are a very, very big deal. The trial court didn't hesitate. They were like, nope, late is late. The rule says 15 days, SBMA took 16. Appeal denied, end of story. The door just got slammed in their face.
But SBMA didn't give up. They went to the Court of Appeals, hoping for a little understanding. But the Court of Appeals basically said, look, we can't blame the trial court for following the rules to the letter. That's how this system is supposed to work.
So at this point, it really looked like it was game over. A major legal battle over a government's authority to collect fees was about to be lost. Not because their arguments were bad, but because of a wrong date stamped on a piece of paper, a simple technicality.
But SBMA had one final play. They took their case all the way to the Supreme Court of the Philippines. Their argument was simple. If you let this stand, a huge injustice is going to happen.
And this quote, this really tells you everything you need to know about how the Supreme Court saw things. They said their number one job is to deliver justice. And sometimes, technical rules can get in the way of that. The rules are tools, not the end goal itself.
The court basically laid it out. They said, look, we can relax the rules sometimes, especially when there are special circumstances, when the case clearly has merit, when the mistake wasn't totally the person's fault, or, and this is a big one, when there's a major public interest at stake. And they felt SBMA's case hit on a lot of these points.
And then came the knockout punch. The Supreme Court looked at another, separate case they had just decided. It involved another big company in Subic, Philip Morris. And in that case, the court had already ruled that the CUSA fee was perfectly legal and that Philip Morris had to pay it.
So, this put the court in a tough spot. If they threw out SBMA's appeal just because it was a day late, they'd create what they called an absurd situation. You'd have one company, SBMEI, getting a free pass, while every other company, like Philip Morris, had to pay up. That's not fair, and it's definitely not good for business.
So what's the big takeaway here? This whole story, which started with a simple clerical error, actually shines a light on a really deep and constant struggle that exists at the very heart of our legal system.
It's really a battle between two big ideas. On one side, you've got procedural rigidity.
This is the idea that rules are rules. They have to be strict and apply to everyone equally to keep the system fair and predictable. But on the other side, you have substantial justice. And this is the idea that the ultimate goal is to get to the right and fair answer, even if that means you have to bend a rule to get there. This case was a perfect collision of those two principles.
And in the end, substantial justice won the day. The Supreme Court overturned the lower court's decisions. They told them to forget about the one-day delay and to finally hear SBMA's appeal based on its actual arguments.
This case leaves us with a really powerful question, one that goes way beyond the courtroom. We all rely on rules to create order, in law, in business, in our daily lives. But when does sticking to the rules so strictly actually create an even bigger injustice? And maybe more importantly, who gets to be the one to decide when it's okay to bend them? It's a tough question, and there's definitely no easy answer.